appreciate you guys joining and encourage active participation. Like last time, if you could stay muted until you speak, that would be helpful. Please also use the raise hand function in order to avoid talking over each other. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Let's see, Karen, are you recording?
Yes, I am recording.
Okay. So I think what we'll do is go ahead and review the rulemaking draft that has commentary added from our last RAC meeting. And I believe Karen's going to pull that up on the screen share right now. And can everyone see that well? Okay.
I can.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead and just get started. We're not going to go through everything verbatim like we did last time for the record. I'd just like to skim through the additional follow-up comments that we received, both during the RAC number 1 meeting and subsequent to the meeting that came in writing. So the first section we had a commentary on was section 3, part A. A person shall not act, hold himself or herself out as a public adjuster, solicit or negotiate a contract for public adjusting services in the state unless the person is licensed as a public adjuster in accordance with this rule. Tim, I believe, is not feeling well today, so he submitted a comment saying that this is still being addressed at the NAIC level. Lori, I believe I saw that you had joined us. There are a number of issues here that I just simply made comment that NAIC is still in draft form. And the division would like to follow the NAIC model as close as possible. So I guess my question to you is, do we have any idea on when the NAIC model will be finalized or close to?
Good afternoon, Scott. I will tell you that the model did go through from the task force into the D committee. Again, I'm not an NAIC staffer. I am an APR as the affiliate, but with Tim out, that model is moving through the normal approval process. And I guess we would probably need to get the last update from Tim, but I can tell you in Denver, it definitely moved from task force through the D, through its parent committee, and then on to exec and plenary. So I know he is out sick today. The model itself really kind of focuses on some other key areas, which is primarily the caps. So I'm not sure if Tim actually added, I didn't get a chance to go through all of this, all of the different areas where the model is, but it is not necessarily dealing with the licensing piece. That remained untouched.
Great. Thank you for filling in for Tim on that. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, so duly noted.
I'm laughing at
Are
me.
there any other?
That's not me talking. You have some background talking, but that was not me. But I'm happy to answer any questions, Scott, but I'll go on mute.
Okay, let's see. Jeff, we have a hand raised for you.
Yes, I was pretty much going to say the same thing that Lori said. She beat me to it. I just want to add that the vote in Denver did not change the language in paragraph A. And I happen to have been with Director Dieter, who chairs D committee, last night. And he said that it was unlikely that the final vote of the commissioners would happen before the first of the year. He did not have a date. He just said he doubted it would happen between now and the first of the year.
Could I just add a
Thank you.
clarification, Scott? Director Dieter from South Dakota is the producer licensing task force chair. He is not the D committee chair. I just want to make sure we get that on the record correctly.
Okay,
I
thank you.
apologize.
You bet.
Great. Karen, can we go ahead and scroll down, please? Looks like the next section where we had feedback was all the way down to section 13. This is the biggest point of contention, has to do with adjuster fees and potential capping of fees. We do hear a lot of both for and against feedback on this item. And from what I just heard, I think that may be still up for debate within the NEIC. I can tell you that we have gotten solid input to, I guess, support both sides of the fee capping. So I wanted to go on record as that is being noted. It's not taken lightly. This whole situation, I think, will depend on how the NAIC lands, and we also have some internal discussions involving legal counsel to determine our next steps on this piece. So if anyone has anything else they'd like to add relative to fees, I'd welcome those comments now. Okay, barring none, let's move on to.
I actually had one. I'm sorry. I was trying to raise my
Oh,
hand.
okay.
This is Sandra Moriarty. My
Hi, Sandy.
comment on that, hi. I'm actually right now in Boston at the National Association of Public Insurance Adjusters annual meeting. And there's a lot of discussion on the fee caps, obviously, here at the meeting. And I'm, not necessarily going to weigh in either way, but one of the things when I read this paragraph, where it says that 15% for any insurance claim settlement, and then prior, the last words, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time articulating myself here, prior to the settlement of a claim. I think that's kind of a tough language. Does that mean the final settlement of the claim, or do you see what I'm saying? Because in general, public adjusters are paid as the payments are issued by the insurance company. So when, say, an insurance company issues a payment, the public adjuster sends their invoice, for their percentage of that payment. And so I think the prior to a settlement of a claim, settlement usually means the final resolution of the claim. So I think that's, that's difficult also in light of, public adjusters who maybe get multiple payments of a claim. And if they have to wait until the end to get paid, I think a lot more issues could arise in a situation like that. So that's just my comment there.
Great input. Thank you. Do you have a suggested wording for that piece, or a guidance at least?
I personally would recommend that instead of prior to settlement of a claim, I would say prior to any payment issued on a claim, or something along those lines. The other thing is that sometimes public adjusters are hired after, say, an initial payment has been made, and then if the policyholder is having trouble collecting additional funds, sometimes there's been payments prior to the adjuster being hired. So that's another issue.
Thank you. We'll make note of that. Like I mentioned earlier, we do have some internal discussions still to be had before we land on a position on this piece.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Let's see, Karen, moving on down to section 14A10. It was noted that bonding is not required, so I did remove this reference from the model. Section 14D, concerning potential conflicts of interest. Again, this was the other item that we received quite a bit of feedback on. So basically, the situation is, do we allow or do we not allow a public adjuster have any kind of financial interest in any other aspect of a loss? And I went ahead and struck provisions to this in support of a later section. Let's see, that would be, I think it's in 18, where we address whether a public adjuster can have a say, a financial interest in any other aspect of the claim. Yeah, 18 Part F. Any concerns with that move?
No.
Okay. Scrolling on down to, let's see, we're at section 14. Part G, which used to be H. This has to do with verification of licensure on the insurance carrier's part. We had a comment, Jeff, from the first RAC meeting. And you'd mentioned something about Rhode Island's public adjuster licensing laws. I did contact Rhode Island. She did confirm that they have laws that require verification of licensures on the public adjuster, and then the only other law that they have requiring verification has to do with auto insurance. So I didn't see this being any broader in Rhode Island than it is here in the model. Did you have any further follow-up comments or thoughts on this one?
No, I can send you what I was referring to from Rhode Island. But really, all that we would be looking for from the public adjuster side is it to say the insurer shall verify the public adjuster or anyone acting as a public adjuster holds a valid license. What we want to prevent is unlicensed people, and this happens, they say, I don't need a license because I'm not a public adjuster, I'm a consultant. And, you know, unless the law says you have to check everybody's license, then the consultants will get away with breaking the spirit and intent of the language.
Thank you. That makes sense. Jason, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in Oregon, we do have a consultant license, so that's not a haven. Anyone, I understand why you'd want to slightly broaden that language, and that's fine. I get it. That makes sense. But I would say that we do have in this model law, it says anyone functioning as a public adjuster, it defines a public adjuster, says they're required to be licensed. And we have this similar language regarding consultants, so they wouldn't be able to even use that as an excuse as far as we're concerned. Something to point out.
Right. Consultant is just one example. Contractors act like public adjusters. and they say they don't have to be licensed because they're a contractor when they're violating the definition of what a public adjuster is.
Sure.
There's a lot of examples. I just use consultant as one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Scrolling on to item J, previously item K. Tim had mentioned in RAC number 1 that this is still in draft form. Do we have any thoughts or updated insight as to how this one might land? Okay.
Scott?
Yeah.
Scott, this is Lori.
Yes.
I'm just going to chime in here again that the provisions that were being under review and discussion by the NEIC membership, anything that was in the draft, the prior draft that Tim is referring to, is the draft that went through the producer licensing task force approval, then on to its parent committee to the D, all in Denver. The problem that we have here is that exec and plenary, which sounds like Jeff had a conversation with Director Dieter, that they don't know when that piece of that final piece for full adoption of membership is to be taken up. And again, absent of Tim on this, I'm only going to go by what I have knowledge of, from the Denver National meeting, from the NEIC fall meeting.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on down the document brings us to section 18. Parts C and D are at question. An adjuster should not advertise or infer damage unless an inspection of the property has been completed. And a public adjuster shall not offer to pay an insured deductible or claim the deductible will be waived as an inducement to using services of the public adjuster. I assume there's been no update on that one either. So we'll go ahead and just move on to item F, 18F. This is the section that was previously contradicting part 14D. And that one was stricken. And we'll go with this guidance as a public adjuster shall not have a direct or indirect financial interest in any aspect of the claim other than the salary, fee, commission, or other consideration established in the written contract with the insured. Any thoughts or opposition to going that direction?
This is Jeff. NAPI is fine with that language.
Thank you. Moving on down to 18J Part 3. And this has to do with not allowing a public adjuster to act as a company adjuster or an independent adjuster on the same claim. That was an item noted last time. NAPIA is of the opinion that adjusters should not be able to hold an independent adjuster license at all. It's conflict of interest still being discussed at the NAIC. Is there any
Scott?
newer input? Yes.
I would tell you that I think this one is going to be one of those the pieces of language, and Jeff can chime in here. I would suspect that this will still be back to the state, because the prohibitions that exist in some of the states where it's not allowed to both be a public adjuster and independent adjuster, those because of the conflict of interest, regardless of what's going on with the current model, I do not foresee those states that prohibit that changing their position on this. And so unless Jeff obviously knows more from this association and the industry side, the states that have this prohibition, I do not see changing.
And I agree, it needs to be a state-by-state decision. But NAPIA stands by that if you're a public adjuster, you're a public adjuster. You can't also work for an insurance company in any way, shape, or form because it presents a conflict of interest.
Very good. Thank you. So yes, we'll take that back in our internal discussions. Well, we meet to finalize our position on all of these. The last issue had to do with section 20. This is a new ad. Yeah, I forget who called it out in the last meeting, but made mention of the fact that this was in the model law, an earlier version than, or a later version than what I was working off of. So I did find a more current version. I believe it was what came out of Denver. At least it was dated like 11/19 of 24, as the most recent copy I could find. And I copied that, the provisions of unlicensed actor. Just gives us a little leverage with making it now a crime to act as a public adjuster without being licensed. Any concerns with that move?
This is Jeff again. Thank you very much for adding that. The only thing I would add, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, but it doesn't have what the penalty is for doing so. So I don't know if that leaves it up to the insurance department or if a specific penalty or fine or punishment needs to be included.
Great. Yes, Eric?
Yeah, hey, Scott, I can't put my fingers on it, but I think that's the way we tie it to the insurance code, which does has that information. So definitely take that back. But for Jeff, that's a way for us to tie it to the insurance code, if that makes any sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so that moves us through the proposed rulemaking. Let's go ahead and pivot to the statement of need and fiscal impact. Karen, if you don't mind. Yeah, could you scroll down to page 2, please? Here, I just made mention of the input that we received in the first RAC meeting that the fee cap portion, if we do retain that, could have a potential negative impact on low value losses. It may hurt individuals with smaller claims, which may be correlated with people with lower incomes or people who do not speak English. Any concerns with that, or would you like to add anything to that? Okay. Okay. So there's some comments in the chat as well. Let's see here. Okay, so Jesse showed us the statutes concerning penalties. All right. Anything else relative to the statement of need and fiscal impact? All right. Well, that was short and sweet. I have nothing further for this group. Like Ed mentioned, we will take this internal and figure out next steps. I think these meetings have been very productive, and I appreciate all of your input. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Hey,
Okay.
Scott,
Yeah.
before we go, I just I looked at chat and I noticed Sandra had a question about I think up in the document about electronic signatures, etc.
I did. It was just a question. A lot of these documents are executed electronically, so I'm not sure if there needs to be a clarification there or not. They say talk about original documents.
I'm sorry, what's the section number?
It was right when we were, if you can scroll, it was right where we were discussing. Keep going. Oh, shoot. Where'd it go? It was the one that talked about having two copies, two originals, one for the insured and one for the adjuster, and that they needed to keep, copy of the original available. Where did it go? I thought it was. It was the one where they had the changed, the letters were changed. There, keep going.
Right in here?
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up there where it says GF, right there.
In section 14, Karen?
Yeah. Yes.
See that where they talk about contracts executed in duplicate? I just, a lot of people use electronically signed documents these days. So I just wondered if there needed to be a clarification on that, or if that means that they have to have, original inked signatures.
So this is section 14. Yes, Scott.
14F, the contracts shall be executed in duplicate to provide an original contract to the adjuster and original contract to the insured. Public adjuster's original contract shall be available at all times for inspection. I apologize. Could you state your observation or concern with this one?
I was just wondering if that meant electronic and electronically signed contracts couldn't be used. Does this mean an original ink signature? Because a lot of people use electronic contracts. It could be too picky. The thought came to my head when I was reading it.
And Jason has his hand up.
Yeah, so this is something that, yeah, this is something that's been discussed and like with amongst regulators for licensing things. In our most of our laws are from well prior to the digital age, so there was some of the laws are written aiming at like a wet signature is required. We don't have any intention of requiring a wet signature in a digital age. I think an electronic signature is going to be fine. Whether we need to have that language specifically in the law or not, I don't know. But I don't foresee us having any issue with electronic signatures.
Right. Great. Thank you.
And Eric has his hand up.
Yeah, I still think Scott, might be worthwhile kicking it around, but I think that's going into contract law, and I think that bridge has already been crossed. I believe that a valid electronic signature would be probably more than sufficient, but might be worth checking it out with one of our counsel. So, but I'm just amen in what Jason just said, because I think a valid contract is a valid contract if validly signed.
And Scott, I would add, sorry, this is Lori Wolf. I would add, just as a former regulator, I am aware of most states having some broader authority around electronic filings and electronic signatures and wet signatures in other parts of their statutes. So you might want to just verify that too, because I think with where Jason was headed is probably the direction that most states have, and that they would not necessarily require a wet signature on that contract. In terms of the licensing applications, most states have that broad language that came from the PLMA that allowed for all types of electronic filings to be allowed through the NAIC or its subsidiaries on the application side for the license itself. But I just knew that just for the wet signatures, a lot of states have that in another section of their statutes.
we'll go ahead and take that back and verify that we're covered there and amend it as needed. Good input. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments before we close this up? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Again, I thank you for your participation, and we'll keep you in the loop as to what happens next.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.